You good?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We on our second last session for the day, and I'd like to introduce Anna Zsófia from Hungary. We just had a brief chat about the healthcare system in Hungary, so it's quite an interesting conversation to have. I think everybody's going through the same sort of changes with healthcare system globally. So, not taking anything away from Anna Zsófia's chat. So, welcome, Anna, and take it away.
Thank you. I hope people will get back after this long break. So today I will be talking about behavioral design and motivational interviewing for a CGM companion app. Uh, and I'm glad that we had a talk on behavioral design yesterday, and also talked a little bit about diabetes and medical devices for diabetes earlier today. Usually in UX circles, motivational interviewing is an approach or a technique that's rather unknown. So, if you come from a clinical or health psychology background or work with patients in one on one settings, chances are that you have heard about it or might even be trained in it. So, not many people are here just now, but still, I'm curious if you are familiar with it, motivational interviewing, or you are a practitioner who uses it. Drop a message in the chat. I would be happy to learn if someone has experience with it. But in any case, you don't have to be a clinical psychologist to apply it when working with digital health products or generally in interview settings and UX research. So today, through a case study, I will show you our exact process on how we integrated this technique into user interviews and translated our learnings to design for it to be behaviorally informed and reflecting real deep-rooted user needs. Um, I see that no one yet has admitted to having used or learned motivational interviewing, but we will see by the end. Drop a message or a question anytime. So, before we get into it, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Zsófia, and well, as you can see here, I have multiple professional identities. I identify as a psychologist, UX researcher, and a behavioral scientist. I learned motivational interviewing as a psychologist in training in a counseling setting, meaning that I had sessions with patients with problematic alcohol use, interpersonal issues, or adherence problems. Then during my master's, I discovered UX, and I felt this immediate connection because it blended my core skills and interests really well. I've now been in UX for 8 years, and people often ask me why I abandoned psychology or why I'm not a psychologist anymore. And my answer is always that I didn't, because I realized many theories and practical techniques I learned during my education in clinical and health psychology actually transfer really well into my research and design practices. Then, well, years later, due to the fact that we don't have a specifically behavioral science higher education in Hungary, where I'm based, I connected the dots and discovered how behavioral science frameworks, theories, and digital behavioral change techniques bridge the gap perfectly between my background in psychology and my applied industry UX work. So then I went on and pursued a postgraduate degree in health promotion and health behavior change. And I'm always on the lookout for projects where I can really make a difference with applying this behavioral lens. And currently, I do it at UX Studio, where I work as a UX researcher when I have the chance. So, a little bit about UX Studio. We are a UX agency based in the heart of Europe that we call Budapest. And what has always set us apart is our strong commitment to research. We always had a dedicated team of UX researchers from the very get-go, and research informs every design decision that we make. And while we work across many industries and have more than 10 years of experience, more than 100 products that we've worked on, from fintech to education, there are some sectors that particularly benefit from our process, and healthcare is one of those. Whether it's like health tech or digital therapeutics or these lifetime focused wellness apps that we worked on, this is the user-centered approach is what really helps design teams to design products that not only work but are based on real needs of patients and users, while still being mindful of the specificities of healthcare industry, like we already mentioned today, regulations and systems in place and other constraints. But today, I'd like to show you our process through a recent lab project I led at UX Studio. I consider myself lucky that I can make use of my health psychology and behavioral science background in my work, and I had the opportunity to pitch and lead this lab project around a wearable technology that I'm deeply passionate about, both personally and professionally, which are continuous glucose monitors. Actually, I apply one today because they are quite hard to access in Hungary, but I learned about a new brand that has been available since this year, just yesterday. So I ordered it and it was this fast. I picked it up today and applied it. So I wouldn't even need this image for a demonstration, but still, for those who might not be enough familiar, CGMs are these small wearable devices that track glucose levels real time. They were traditionally used for diabetes management, but it's a very lively space, and CGMs are now gaining a lot of traction and popularity in the past years, and this doesn't seem to slow down. But despite this, many of the applications are still missing the mark on fulfilling user needs, or that is how I see it. And like in health, this is not just about nice UIs or intuitive interactions. It's about serious decisions people make around their health, and it's about making their everyday lives easier with their condition, or just helping them learn about their metabolism. So we built our 7 weeks long lab project around this initial observation, and we decided to start with a thorough discovery. But what does a lab project or app concept mean? So while we do work with healthcare clients, we wanted to show our behavioral approach in UX research and design in a healthcare context. And we wanted to see also what a team of 3 people can achieve in only 7 weeks. So I will show you an overview of what we have achieved. However, this talk will focus specifically on motivational interviewing, and I will demonstrate through examples how its techniques transfer really well to user interviews. And in the second part, I will show you the insights that we gain from interviews and other research activities, and how they shape the design and capabilities of our CGM app concept. So why CGMs and why now? The statistics are striking. In the US alone, 38.4 million people have diabetes, which is 11.6% of the adult population, and 97.6 million adults have prediabetes, which is 38% of the adult population, even more striking statistic. So the problem is very apparent, and it's no wonder that there's a growing interest in CGMs. But besides constant monitoring that could be essential for type 1 diabetics, they could even connect some CGMs to insulin pumps. We now know that these devices can play a significant role in preventing conditions like type 2 diabetes, or help people keeping their prediabetes at bay, or even reverse it, enhance their personal well-being, and create behavioral changes that are based on this personalized data that CGM apps provide. However, without the proper guidance, users often feel very overwhelmed by all the data and struggle to interpret it effectively. Number 3, I'm jumping a bit ahead because we learned this through the literature review and checked recent RCTs, but we found that insights from CGMs actually contribute to the prevention of type 2 diabetes. So not developing this condition through supporting behavioral modifications. So we know that with these data-driven changes that they make in their diet and stress and activity, it's great for prevention. So it's a really important field to design for, and a really important population, pre-diabetics, to design for. But there is still very low adoption beyond type 1 diabetes. This is starting to shift with some companies having released FDA cleared CGMs that are available without a prescription to the general population. But yeah, generally in the US, up until like a half a year ago, you could only get one with a prescription. Whereas, for example, in Hungary, technically, you can get like one or two types, not the most popular ones, without a prescription, but there's like very, very like 0 point something percent adoption with non-diabetic users. So we really saw an opportunity to innovate because we have design as a tool to really improve usability, adoption, and impact for non-diabetic users. We wanted to create this independent companion app, so not tied to a specific CGM device. We're aware that you have to jump through many hoops, abide by ISO standards, regulations, and many more constraints that were mentioned today in an earlier talk if you're an official companion app of a medical device. However, our focus wasn't on accuracy or medical use or sensor user experience, but we really wanted to explore the needs, the values, the behavior change part, and the app user experience. And I'm working a little bit backwards here, but we know that aside from expensive subscription health apps that cost hundreds of dollars per month, current CGM apps are primarily designed for medical management. They show glucose readings, but provide very limited guidance on what people can do with that information. And for novice users, especially those without diabetes, this creates confusion rather than empowerment. So the outcome of the lab project was this glide. That's how we named it, with like glucose guide. Is a companion app concept designed to help novice and intermittent users decode glucose data from wearable sensors. It offers easy logging and actionable insights to improve metabolic health in a nutshell. And I tell you, so like I said, we're working a little bit backwards, but I tell you all about how we got there. Firstly, this is a nice simple outcome, but we weren't set on serving and exploring the needs of this one narrower group, like at-risk population, pre-diabetics, and intermittent users. But that's what all the activities in this first part of the research and design process helped us to narrow down. So discovery was broader, but this targeting didn't come from the interviews only. There was also literature review, other secondary research like social listening, expert reviews, cognitive walkthrough of existing solutions. So here you can see an overview. We started with self-testing because there's no better way to learn about it than being novice users ourselves. We installed different types of CGMs, had used official and third-party apps as well. Then we did an expert review, competitor analysis, desk research or secondary research, then interviews with motivational interviewing, which will serve as a core of the insights, and we distilled it all into value proposition canvas that we workshopped together to really arrive at what we want to do, who do we want to target, and what problems do we want to solve. The backbone of our insights were qualitative research based, so one-on-one moderated interviews using motivational interview techniques. The sample was from US and Hungary as well. Despite very apparent differences in availability, accessibility, affordability, and awareness, also socioeconomic differences, the psychological drivers were universal. So this validated our broader behavioral approach. However, due to very low adoption rates and low access, non-diabetic CGM users proved to be very complicated to find in Hungary. So one of our main takeaways was that we saw the gap in the market and also many people with unserved needs needs novice, intermittent, and non-insulin dependent users who just want to learn about their metabolism, maybe because of risk factors or having gestational diabetes or wanting to reverse their pre-diabetic state, but they might not need it for constant use. Our goal was to understand their unique challenges of both diabetic and non diabetic CGM users at first, exploring how they manage their conditions and identify opportunity spaces for digital solutions that ultimately help users keeping their blood glucose levels stable and in range. These one on one moderated interviews are a great way to unpack these in detail. So, I'm going to talk about how we employ motivational interviewing to unpack what drives CGM users' behavior, also what values they center their health decisions around, and the insights that we gather through these interviews. I will also show those and how they help to shape the design of this app that really fosters motivation, gives guidance while still respecting the autonomy of the users and improving their self efficacy. So, focusing back on motivational interviewing, I was already 2 years into my career when it dawned on me that I rely so much on my training as a psychologist when I'm interviewing users. Back then, we did a lot of in person research as well, and especially motivational interviewing techniques, and without even giving it much thought. And then I started to think, what if I officially adapt MI techniques to user interviews? As I dove deeper into the topic, I discovered that at the time in 2019, no one had really talked about this, no one has written about it. So I set out to fill this gap. And back then, it was published on InVision's blog. I don't know if you remember the prototyping tool InVision. They had this blog, Inside Design, and there was very heavy editing on their side. And I was still a little bit inexperienced, so I didn't correct them. But ever since then, I wanted to set the record straight that motivational interviewing is not a UX research tool. However, I assure you that applying its techniques in user interviews and usability test settings can really help your research practice and uncover deeply rooted motivations. And it is extremely useful in health related topics. But I still wanted to correct this title even many years after. But then, what is motivational interviewing and where does it come from? The definition in short is that it's a person centered counseling style for addressing the common problem of ambivalence about change. It can be described as a collaborative, guiding communication style based on partnership. So, motivational interviewing was initially developed by William R. Miller and Stephen Rolnick in the 80s as a method to assist individuals with substance use disorder. And over time, its application has expanded beyond addiction treatment to various domains, including like public health, criminal justice, education, sports, or even parenting. MI is frequently used to support individuals in making positive life changes, and by today, the authors have officially broadened its reach to growth, not only change, as you can see in the title of this 2023 edition, Helping People Change and Grow. That is the subtitle of the book. And just to mention, because we do love evidence-based tools and research. There is very extensive research behind motivational interviewing. So there are over 90 clinical trials that have demonstrated its effectiveness in facilitating behavior change and across various cultures and settings. And while motivational interviewing is sometimes defined as a counseling approach, and this is also the context where I was trained to apply it originally, many practitioners encourage us to think of it as a communication philosophy that could be applicable in any setting that involves people interacting, so including UX research as well. Essentially, adopting MI techniques to a UX setting is making use of an evidence based technique from another discipline, or that's how I see it. I think we can agree that a user interview is no therapy. So we have to be mindful, keeping our roles, focus, and boundaries as UX researchers. Breaking down these differences, we can see that in counseling, the goal is to support behavior change, like cutting down on alcohol. While in UX research, we're aiming to understand how users think, feel, or behave, and why. When it comes to length, counseling usually takes place over multiple sessions, while user interview is typically a one off 45 to 60-minute session. The relationship is also different. Like while a counselor guides the client towards behavior change, in research, we guide the user to share insights that will later inform product decisions. So I will show you the exact techniques and snippets from the interviews that we conducted. As I mentioned, we had a mixed sample, participants both from the US and Hungary. We had 12 participants, and we conducted 12 one-hour sessions with diabetics and non-diabetics alike. So these techniques that I will show you today are represented by the acronym ORS. I'm smiling because I think psychologists, behavioral scientists, and even UXers just love their acronyms. Everything's an acronym. ORS is a core set of techniques that is used in motivational interviewing to foster effective communication and engagement. The letters stand for open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summary. And with our conscious application, we can build rapport, encourage self reflection, and exploration of ambiguous feelings, not just towards like alcohol use, but also regarding a product or a digital service or a health behavior that it's centered around. Although we did have a script for the user interviews, but motivational interviewing is all about practice, presence, and like the right amount of impromptu questions, reflections, and affirmations that arise spontaneously. While summary, as you will see, is completely based on what the interviewee has said, so very few of the MI elements or techniques could be written down beforehand. My favorite analogy is that MI is like a dance. We move in sync with the participant, their ambivalence, their resistance, even. Why we are not shying away from breaking our neutral UX researcher facade, like humming along, like, or nodding, or saying, tell me more about that. Starting off, open-ended questions are the backbone of a good user interview. If you're a researcher or do or have done research, it's safe to say that you heard this as the number one advice on how to conduct a good user interview. Here's an example from our project. We didn't ask, do you use the meal logging feature? Instead, we first asked a more general, open question, not assuming that they do log their meals or care about their meals at all. We asked, what role do meals play in your blood glucose management? Once they gave us an answer, started to reflect on their attitudes towards their meals, we followed up with, how do you keep track of them? This way, we could learn much more than just asking a yes or no question about a feature. We could learn about the whys and the underlying attitudes towards meals. And yeah, let's be honest, everyone has a very complex relationship with food. Additionally, I like to think of open ended questions across two dimensions. One is scripted versus spontaneous, and the other one is simple versus complex. To start off well, I like to write open ended questions in advance for my script so I wouldn't have to come up with the right wording on the spot. But I'm always attentive to fire some impromptu open ended questions. So, our simple open ended question from our script was, how did you prepare for your first CGM use? This is quite straightforward. As opposed to this, a more complex and interpretative question from our script was, in an ideal world, how do you imagine monitoring your glucose levels being part of your day to day life? Now, this no one could answer in a split second without reflection. Many interviewees were like, wow, that's a good question. Let me think about it. And then we were really amazed by the depth of the answers the interviewees gave to this question. It really showed how they think about their condition, their overall well being, and their health. They really opened up about their values in general. Secondly, letter A stands for affirmations. In a clinical setting, affirmations are all about supporting someone's efforts to change a behavior, like adopting exercise for better cardiovascular health. But in our world, we are not trying to guide someone towards change, we're trying to understand them better. So, how do affirmations look like in this context? Generally, you can start by saying things like, "Thank you for taking the time today. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. You're an expert in your field." These will ensure that your participant feels comfortable to open up and share their true thoughts and feelings. And it's about making them feel seen and appreciated, and recognizing the valuable insights that they bring to the table during the session. Then I like to think about situational affirmations. It means that it's guided by what the participant has just shared. We had a really personal moment in one of our interviews with a participant with type 1 diabetes. This person has been hospitalized due to a hypoglycemic shock. So, when their blood sugar levels dropped really low, it was accompanied by symptoms like starting to lose eyesight and even fainting. So after that, I said, "Thank you for sharing your wake up call moment with us. It must have been really scary, and it really shows your resilience, how you kept track of your glucose levels more consistently despite your fear of needles." Of course, I referred back to what the participant has also mentioned earlier. But in these moments, it's not just about gathering data, it's about connecting with the person in front of you, recognizing their experiences and making them feel valued. Like this person has just shared a near death experience, and these affirmations really help participants to share more about these difficult experiences or experiences that they think wouldn't paint them in a good light. R is for reflections. This is a really distinct technique I get a lot of questions about usually, of motivational interviewing that researchers that I know use very sparingly, if at all. They rarely add extra meaning or interpretation. We like to be quite neutral. Like I mentioned, hum along, saying things like, "Tell me more," or ask, "Am I right?" But the essence of reflective response is a statement that makes a guess as to what the person means. So consciously or not, you as an interviewer decide what to reflect, what to ignore, what to emphasize or de-emphasize, and what words you use for capturing meaning. And these reflections can be used to shine a light on certain aspects of what the person has said, or even reframe its meaning slightly or provide an interpretation. And this requires a lot more mental effort and presence than asking questions. But like everything else, it gets easier with practice. On these slides, I included what the participant has said because reflections only exist in relation to what they mentioned. The depth of the reflection matters. It can be simple or complex. And I did a little bit of paraphrasing here to show snippets from our actual interviews. Simple reflection sounded like this: "I stick to my routine unless it's a special occasion like having margaritas on my birthday. With a consistent diet and lifestyle, I don't worry much about my numbers, even if there's a night out or restaurant mistake." So, and I replied, "So having learned a lot of consistency and routine has set you on a better track mentally as well." I added a bit of meaning because in this scenario, I'm also referring back to what the participant has said earlier in the interview, that they have felt a lot of worry and being anxious all the time about their blood glucose levels, and highlighted that not worrying anymore is a result of their hard work on their routine and consistency, which they keep 95% of the time, that allows them to enjoy themselves in those rare occasions when they go out for drinks. Complex reflection, on the other hand, looks like this. I I'd really like to get started with physical activity, but because my sugar levels get really high or really low very fast, I don't dare to. I see other diabetics doing sports, and I'm like amazed. I don't know how they do it, but whatever, it must be working out well for them. And I replied, "But you don't feel that it's safe." So here my reaction went one step further, added some meaning and interpretation, and I took a guess to the deeper underlying reasons. And this is what reflections do. Maybe you're not 100% accurate or you might exaggerate, but this meaning added is exactly what can deepen the conversation and dig into the underlying drivers. So, in my experience, reflections bring forth these elaborations that asking further questions or saying, tell me more, often cannot. And lastly, of our ORs, S is for summary. A collecting summary recalls a series of interrelated things that the participant has shared. The second related type is a linking summary. Here we reflect what the person has said and link it to something else that you remember from the earlier part of the interview. So that's why you have to have a lot of presence during interviews. The third type is the transitional summary. For this one, I brought an example because I think every researcher should use this. So, for example, when wrapping up a task or a theme during a session, or pulling together what seems important, or announcing the shift to something new. So, to sum up, it's been revolutionary for your diabetes management, and you can be a bit more at peace knowing that it will alert you when it's out of the target zone and you can make decisions based on it. So, it was to close down the exploration of the theme on how they use CGMs in their daily life. And after this transitional summary, we moved over to exploring app related experiences. Ooh, and now, after the ORs, I want to introduce quickly one other very practical MI tool that I like to bring to user interviews, and you can include them early on in your script. These are scale questions. And the first scale questions MI practitioners typically ask gauges importance. It is also referred to as the readiness ruler. It sounds like this. On a scale from 0 to 10, how important is it for you to ... And the ... like the space should be your problem that you're trying to solve, or the target behavior that you're trying to reach with your product and with your product or your service. So for us, it was keeping blood glucose levels in the target range. And this simple tool helped us to reveal how much the problem we are tackling with our product matters to the user. And it will really guide the design and inform us if there is generally low engagement and low motivation, how we can facilitate behavior change and increase that motivation and engagement. After that, we can follow up this question by asking, and why are you at a 8 and not a 6? And it provides us with insights into the user's motivation and priorities and the whys behind it. So, for example, for us, here, driving values were mentioned, like spending more quality time with family without the low energy episodes caused by fluctuating blood glucose levels. So, being able to go on a hike and spend quality time with family. And there's only the second question, the second scale question, the confidence ruler, because the other side of readiness and motivation is the confidence. So the strength of our belief that we can or can do something. It sounds like this. How confident are you that you could do this if you decided to? On a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is not at all confident and 10 is extremely confident, where would you say you are? And then we follow up with two questions. Why are you at a 8 and not a 6 again? And what would it take for you to go from an 8 to 9, an even higher number? And we never ask about why didn't they give a lower number, because we don't want them to undermine their self-efficacy. We want to strengthen and affirm it. So what we learned from asking these questions in our study is that people with type 1 diabetes, or people who had diabetes for a longer time that need close management, give the highest of importance to glucose level management, often like 11 or 12 out of 10. And it's a core value in their day-to-day life. And generally, people also had a really high confidence, but we saw a difference there. So those who are new to monitoring their blood glucose levels, so were pre-diabetic or non-insulin dependent type 2 diabetes patients, they needed a little bit more guidance. They needed to experiment and learn, and they didn't have that much chance to learn from this real-time feedback. So with this, we had this benchmark that we want the app to help its users to gain more confidence in themselves for glycemic control. And we wanted to achieve it by applying design elements that foster motivation, apply positive reinforcement, goal setting, feedback loops, and education, just to mention a few broad examples. In the second part of our research, we moved on to the more design-heavy phase. We started off with a behavioral map, followed up with wireframes, prototyping, testing again, and iterating, mood boards, look and feel, and the final UI. The behavioral map, I don't know if you have heard about it or used it. It's a visual tool that outlines the key behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and contextual factors that influence the user's journey. It helps identify barriers, motivators, and intervention points. And eventually, our goal is to support this lasting behavior change. So in this case, the target behavior is the core part, but it was very tricky with this product. I found that in our case, it was much easier to define the outcomes. The outcomes were defined as psychological, improved confidence, knowledge and control over blood glucose, and clinical, the improved time in range. However, with the target behavior, it's a little bit complex here. We wanted to have daily engagement with CGM data through the cycle of input, insight, experimentation, and reflection and adaptation. Some of these are very tangible, measurable behaviors. For example, input, like logging meals, like meal activity, mood at least twice a day, or experimentation, like I will show you what I mean by that, starting experiments in the app. Or but what I put in italics, like inside interpreting these personalized glucose response data, or reflection and adaptation, making better choices based on what's learned. These are more mental processes that are still part of the loop but couldn't be like well defined as behaviors. But the point is that the app still provides a timely prompt and the insights and removes friction so that these behaviors can happen and lead to these desired psychological and clinical outcomes. So how does it look like? I won't go into detail. You won't be able to see it in the small picture, but it has the target behavior, at the end of the lanes, the actions, the doing, what the user is doing, the touch point, the system, observation, structural barriers, psychological barriers, questions, unknowns, possible problems, ideas, and opportunities. And here, what I want to highlight is that not only do we have in-app activities in the behavioral map, but we also have some events and steps that happen in real life. I signaled them in gray. So, for example, acting on a recommendation by adding cottage cheese and more green vegetables to their next poke bowl to up the fat and fiber content. And then logging again. Logging happens in the app, but actually doing the behavioral modification and adjusting your meal happens outside of the app, but it's still important for us that this happens and it's part of the journey. So after we figured out who our target population is, defining these goals and outcomes, this behavioral map really served as a map for designers, and together with them, we could really translate the insights to interactions, pieces of UX copies, and design elements that support the user towards their target behavior. And I will close the presentation by showing two of these features, how they look like. You can see on the screen, actually, these are the prototypes that we use for user testing. So the first one is uncovering these deeply rooted motives with the interviews and all the other research data, we arrived at the decision that we want to have two main features that we wanted to really lay out and design in this short time frame that we had. So our logging feature was designed to remove friction and make data input as simple as possible. So users can choose their preferred method. It could be voice commands, as you saw here, or it could be taking a photo. And this addresses the key pain point from our research. So there is traditional logging is really cumbersome, takes a lot of time, and leads users to abandon the practice altogether. However, here we recognize that there's a need to leverage some behavioral mechanisms. And what I mean by this is that removed as many barriers as possible to make meal logging easier and more seamless, so that someone who is a novice user can get the best of their CGM data. We knew that we can absolutely use existing AI capabilities here, like photo recognition, but it comes at a cost: accuracy. However, for example, those who are just starting out on their CGM journey want to experiment and learn about how their bodies respond to certain meals. They don't need 100% accurate carbohydrate contents to the gram counted by the app. However, this simplified logging facilitates exactly this loop of input, behavior change, and learning. So this is what we set out to achieve. We built in clear and timely cues of when to enter data. So we can use the insights from the app. So when the glucose levels are rising, when there is generally lunchtime for the user, then we can send these prompts. And the rewards are also involved. So we can say that personalized insights are rewards because they serve as a positive reinforcement. We show what works in their favor of stabilizing glucose levels, what worked well, but also what might be improved. The second feature I want to show you, and you can see the prototype again on the screen, are supporting experimentation and learning. So we created this playbook feature with guided experiments. And we wanted to reduce the mental load of interpretation and provide the personalized insights and feedback on glucose patterns. So this was our solution for the education back gap. Sorry. Rather than overwhelming the users with general information, we offered these personalized experiments like this fat and fiber feast. So with that, the user can really compare two meals. One day they will eat the poke bowl with less fat and fiber, and the other day with more. And the app can highlight the actual glucose response and also make the interpretations. And one thing that we learned is that through the interviews, that everyone said that there was something that their doctor said that is recognized as a simple truth, but just didn't work for them. So for a person, they couldn't eat even brown rice, which was supposed to be like good for stabilizing glucose levels, because they raised their glucose levels high, but they could tolerate potatoes really well. So we don't want to shove these insights down the throat of users. We really want them to see for themselves, learn from it, and learn from their own bodily reactions. Here you can see the UI. I won't get into it because I wanted to emphasize more what we learned with the motivational interviewing. But all in all, these client projects tend to go less dynamic, so not achieving final UI on all these features and prototyping in 7 weeks, but this was a great opportunity for us to explore what we can do in this time. And I know I'm out of time, so to close down, I just want to share takeaways. So behaviorally informed design is very powerful in health tech, especially when users are learning, reflecting, and adapting. And I would never underestimate a good qualitative interview, especially now that everything's AI, and AI. However, motivational interviewing, can really help you unlock those deeper insights. And by incorporating it, you can connect with the deeper why beneath the surface behaviors. And this leads to designs that truly reflect user needs, particularly in sensitive areas like health management. And the message to researchers: try to break the mold of neutrality, start small, but gradually build up to more complex reflections and open-ended questions, because it can really open up participants. So I highly encourage everyone who talks to patients and health tech users to apply motivational interviewing. I have some more articles on it and a more detailed case study on Glide. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I saw that Theo has posted my LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to share additional resources with you if you are interested. So that's all we had time for today. Thank you, and stay spike free. And I will get some water. Apparently, I'm I'm out of breath, not because I'm so nervous, but I'm 6 months pregnant. That's why I have the CGM for managing my gestational diabetes, and this is the first symptom I experience, like being out of breath
Oh,
after speaking so long.
thank you so much, though, Anna Sophia. We will speak to you soon, and everything on the best with your pregnancy. Okay, we're gonna hop into our next and final speaker with Amy. Thank you, Kipper. We'll connect.